This also appears, this argument, so to speak, between Isaac and also God. This also appears in Breshit Rabbah 67:5. 67, paragraph number 5. When you have a chance, it adds a few points. It's definitely worthwhile to check it out. We'll try to save time, and just know that this appears in different places, this conversation. Okay, now, when did this take place? According to our sages, we know that it says in the beginning of the Torah, when he speaks about the holidays, that each of the holidays are represented. We have three major holidays: Passover, we have Shavuot, and we have Sukkot, the booths, the tabernacle. And each one of these three holidays is connected to one of the forefathers. So which forefather is connected to Sukkot? We all know that it's Jacob, as it says that Jacob made these booths or tents for his animals before coming into the city of Shechem, Nablus, what they call today. And we know that Abraham is connected to Passover, because when the angels came to tell him that what was going to be done in Sodom, or that Sarah would be pregnant, this was during Passover, as it says in the Talmud, that Lushi Vasi Ugot, that Abraham told Sarah to make these matzot. It's Passover. And of course Isaac, when he was about to be sacrificed on the altar by his father Abraham, they caught a ram, and one of the horns of the ram was used during the time of the giving of the Torah on the holiday of Shavuot. So that's connected to Isaac. So we have these three holidays. So Jacob represents Sukkot. And interestingly enough, when did Jacob pass away? Or we could say the same thing, when did Jacob and Esau pass away? Because they kind of passed away on the same day. They were buried at the same time. So it was on the first day of Sukkot. Now this is very, very interesting. This is very interesting here. We see that when we look at the giving of the Torah, it might seem to the naked eye that there is some connection between the nations of the world and the receiving of the Torah. What do I mean by that? We are told in the Torah that before God offered the Torah to the Jewish people, he first offered it to all the nations of the world. Now, if you're offering it to the nations of the world, there must be some connection to that Torah, because you're not going to offer somebody, if somebody has no legs, you're not going to offer him to, a bike. You're not going to offer a bike because he doesn't have any legs to ride the bike, so you wouldn't do that. The person would be hurt. So, what's going on? It seems like that there is some kind of connection that the nations of the world have to the Torah that they're being offered. But once again, it only looks that way. The truth of the matter is, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha kilat Yaakov. Exactly the opposite. That a Gentile who delves into the Torah, we're not talking about a person that's delving into the Torah to look into the 7 commandments of Noah, or to learn about acts of kindness, and to learn from our forefathers and our mothers, etc. We're not talking about that. But as we said in previous classes, there are approximately 70 commandments that a Gentile has to perform, not just the 7. 7 are the sur mira, are the negative. There's also many, many positive things that they have to do, and those are found all over the Torah. So anyways, we see here that even if we see that none of the nations accepted the Torah. And it's not just because they happen to say no. It's because Hashem is coming by and telling us that they are really not connected to that Torah. They really are not connected to the Torah. Because we know that the Torah spiritually has 600,000 letters, and there are spiritually 600,000 Jewish souls, where you might say there's 40 million Jews. That is true, but that means that we share different souls, which means if you feel close to a person, that's because you're probably on the same wave, same cloud, same soul as they are. You're connected. So we know that 600,000 letters of the Torah, 600,000 souls of the Jewish people that exist. This is a tremendous, tremendous union here between the Jewish people and the Torah. And as we said, Torah tziva lanu Moshe. God has commanded us to give us the Torah of Moshe. Morasha, it is inheritance for the Jewish people, not for the nations of the world. Exactly the opposite. The nations of the world that will start learning the Torah, they are in dangers. They are chayav mitah. Of course, the court does not kill them because it's not part of the big 7 commandments of Noah, but it's something that they're not allowed to do beyond the scope of the commandments of Noah. Okay, so we see that it looks like they could be connected, but they're really not connected. And the fact is that the commentators mention that even if for some reason one of the nations would have said, okay, does that mean that the Jewish people would not have received the Torah? God forbid. It just means that whoever would have said yes, they would have had a little bit more of a portion and a connection to that Torah. But there was never a question whether Jewish people were going to receive the Torah, because the Jewish people, the world was created. The world was created for the Torah, which is called Reshit. The first word of the Torah is Bereshit, Bereshit, the beginning. And the world was created for the Jewish people, which is also, the Jewish people are also called Reshit. So the Torah is Reshit, and the Jewish people are Reshit. So the whole entire world was created so the Jewish people would receive the Torah on the 6th day of creation. And in fact, the creation was not permanent, and was not fixed, and was not stabilized until the Jewish people did receive the Torah. But this was told about at the beginning of the creation already. So that's the way it really is. Even if a nation would have accepted the Torah, they would have received a little bit more of a portion of an aspect of the Torah. But of course, the Jewish people, it's their Torah, they were created, and it's the match. This is the big match. Okay, so now, we said it looks to the naked eye that there is a connection between the Jewish people, the nations of the world, and the Torah. But if you look closer, you'll see that there is no connection. Actually, there's a big separation fence right in the middle over there between the two. Now comes the holiday of Sukkot. We have the 2 superpowers. We have Jacob and we have Esau. We have the nations of the world and we have the Jewish people. They get together. What day was this? This was on the first day of Sukkot, outside of Hebron, outside of the cave of the patriarchs. And they both passed away on the same day. Of course, there's no coincidence in the Torah. There's a deep message over here. The holiday of Sukkot. We hear many, many times. We've seen on YouTube, we've seen rabbis, so-called rabbis, going around with the Gentiles on the holiday of Sukkot, and they're shaking, you know. I mean, Casey had a great song, you know, shake, 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 shake your lulav. You know, they're shaking the lulav and the etrog, bringing them inside the sukkah. Wow, you know, we'll get into that soon. So it seems like the nations of the world have a connection. More so, we know that the Jewish people during the holiday of Sukkot, when the temple stood in Jerusalem, they brought 70 bulls, right? You know, that's why most Jews are Chicago Bull fans. That's why. Because they brought those 70 bulls to the temple during the 7 days of Sukkot. So, hey, there's a tremendous connection here. And we all know, whenever you're in Jerusalem, on one of the days of Sukkot, you know you're going to get stuck in traffic. Why? Because there's a parade. And there's 6,000, it used to be actually 50 years ago when they started the parade, or around 50 years ago, it was a parade of the army. the army would march up 2 or 3 days to Jerusalem, and that would be the Jerusalem parade of Sukkot. But some years ago, the Christians Christians kidnapped. Kidnap that march over there. 6,000 of them. You get stuck in traffic over there, blocking off all the streets, and waving and smiling at the Jewish people. Ha ha ha. But anyways, so we know why are they coming up? Because it says in Zechariah 14. It says in Zechariah 14. And, whenever I say these, I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for those out there in YouTube land that don't understand Hebrew necessarily. So I'm trying to make it English. I try to say everything in English. But believe me, when I start saying, Zechariah, I'm thinking like, whoa, I do believe. I do believe. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old-time religion. Give me that old... Okay. I have to control myself. So it says there in Zechariah 14, chapter 14 that is, it says that in the time of Sukkot, the nations that will remain after the big punishments of all the nations of the world, those that do not come up to Jerusalem to celebrate Sukkot. Okay, why are they celebrating Sukkot? Why don't they come for Passover? It's a beautiful time of year. Why don't they come during Shavuot? Why don't they come for Hanukkah? We got those donuts, those jelly donuts. Why don't they come for them? Why are they coming for Sukkot? So we know that from Yechezkel, from the prophet Yechezkel in chapters 38 and 39, we know there that the final battle between the Jewish nation and the 70 nations, which are represented by Gog and Magog, which numerical value of Gog and Magog is 70. We know that final battle will take place on Sukkot, and that is going to be the downfall of the nations of the world. The nations of the world will have their downfall on Sukkot. So therefore, Hashem says to the nations that will remain, these are the only people, or the only citizens of the world that will, citizens of nations, because nations will not remain, but there will be citizens that will remain. These people that will remain, they have to come up to Jerusalem during the time of Sukkot. And why the time of Sukkot? Because number one, this is an anniversary of the downfall of the nations and the truth of Judaism over the nations of the world, over Islam, over Christianity. So Sukkot represents the holiday of truth, when it will be clear to all people that are left, to Jews, religious, and those that before were not religious, and those that remain, and the nations will not remain, but there will be citizens of nations that will remain, and they will all see the truth of God is one, and the Torah was true, and the Jewish people are God's messengers in this world. So this all happens on when? On Sukkot. And also, Rashi says that we know that the Jewish people, during the holiday of Sukkot, we are judged for how much rain will come for the next year. This is a holiday which during 7-day period of time, we are being judged how much water, how much precipitation and rain will come for the following year. And even though we do not ask for rain, because it's not a good omen to be sitting in your sukkah and then you get rained on and you have to go out and you're not able to observe that commandment, that's not a good sign. So therefore we do not specifically. But if you understand what you're reading in the prayer books, and you go around every day, the Jewish people, they go around with their 4 species, and they go around the middle of the synagogue, and they read something called Hoshanot. If you look at what's being said, if you understand what you're reading, we're hinting, we're not saying it specifically, but it's all based on Hashem, please bless us with a tremendous year of rain. That's what it's, all these 7 days of Sukkot, it's based on requesting, without saying it in words, rain for the coming year. Okay, now, so
rain for the plants, but
what?
not too much. Rain for food, for agriculture, but not too much rain.
Sure, that's for sure. That's also for, especially for us bikers, you know, we're on the roads over here. I'm not talking about motorcycles, but on the bikes, a little bit too much rain, not so pleasant. Okay, so we have, get this, Jacob, he represents Sukkot. Jacob and Esav are both buried on Sukkot. Sukkot represents the downfall of the nations of the world that came to attack, that have come to attack the Jewish nation, the Jewish people. That's also Sukkot. Sukkot represents also that those citizens of the world that will remain, those righteous people that will remain, they will come up during the holiday of Sukkot to reinstate this truth that the Torah is true, God is true, and the Jewish people are truth. They will come up to reinstate this and reinforce this. But there's even more. We said that there's 70 bulls that are sacrificed on, when the temple stood for the nations of the world. So we see so far that there seems to be like a tremendous, on one hand, connection between the Jewish people and, the nations of the world and Sukkot. But on the other hand, it's their downfall. So which one is it? Are they connected or not? So once again, an amazing angle to look at it. Just like we thought of the Torah, that it seems like it's equal. It could be offered to the Jewish people, it could be offered to the nations of the world, it's the same thing. But in the end, we see that it's not the same. We see that there is no connection between them and the Torah. Same too goes on Sukkot. It seems like there is a connection, but the bottom line is this is the time that they will have a tremendous downfall. We see in Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 3, side 1. It says there that at the end of days, the nations of the world will come and complain to Hashem, why aren't they receiving reward for all the great things that they did? Why are only the Jewish people being rewarded? So they said, you know what? So the nations say, hey, God, why don't you give us like a commandment and we'll prove it to you that if you would have given us the commandments, we would also have followed them. So of all the 613 commandments that God can pick, you got it. You guessed it. Which one does he pick? The holiday of Sukkot. He tells them, you know what? Go ahead and build a sukkah. They go ahead and build a sukkah, and it gets a little bit hot in there. It gets a little bit hot in there, and they say this is not for us at all. So they go out of their sukkah because it's hot in there, it's not pleasant for them, and they take their foot, one of these karate Joe, you know, like, wow! One of these kung fu kicks to kick the sukkah as they're leaving the sukkah. As they're leaving the sukkah. So therefore, we have, okay, very interesting, that Hashem gives them one commandment, the commandment of Sukkot. Hey, there's 612 other ones. No, I want to show you that you're not connected. I want to show you that you might think that Sukkot is a time, just like those 6,000 Gentiles that come up to parade, even though, of course, we're not talking about after there's going to be tremendous punishment against all the nations of the world, and then they'll see the truth. These people are not into the truth. These people are into JC. These people are trying to, people are trying to win a way into the hearts of the Jewish people and then into our souls. That's what they're interested in. These people are no friends of the Jewish soul, of the Jewish people. They're friendly to us in order to arrive at what their destination is. Their goal is something else totally. You could have the biggest smile you would like. And we love Israel. We love Israel. And it's just their way of getting a connection, making a connection to the Jewish people in order to bring us down spiritually to us having to accept JC. So we see that God will give them the commandment of Sukkah, and they will go out of the Sukkah and they will kick it, okay? And they will kick that Sukkah, and the game is over. We see they're out. and they will be punished. Now, the verse that many people use to explain how the Jews and the nations of the world will reunite. This is a verse that is in the prophet Tzfania. It's in the 3rd chapter, and it's the 9th verse. And it says that God will turn the language of the nations into one language, and they will unite with the Jewish people, shoulder to shoulder, to worship God. This is thrown around very often by Jews and also non-Jews. Question is, what exactly does that mean? What is the verse talking about? What is the background of the verse? Because unfortunately, as we know, many people in certain religions like to quote various verses, but it's taken totally out of context. You have to look at, the verses before, after, to see the context. They just throw things out with no backbone. So we will see exactly, the next time we will meet, God willing, for part number 2, we will see exactly how the Torah looks at that verse. What is that verse talking about exactly? That Hashem will change the language of the nations into one language, and they will work shoulder to shoulder with the Jewish people in belief in God. What does that exactly mean? So don't touch the dial. Stay tuned, God willing, next week.